All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you like and subscribe for more. East versus West 19 happened last night. I was able to watch it, even though I probably should have been sleeping, getting ready for my football scrimmage that we had this morning. But tuned in all night, was awesome. All things considered, wasn't sure what to think about what was coming as far as production and everything else with the changes in the league. But man, it was a great show. The production quality was great. Unlike the last one, we had no technical glitches. Everything seemed to be lined up. Microphones, audio, everything was awesome. Thought the event went off really well, especially in conjunction with the Brian Shaw Classic. It was awesome to see the energy in the room with the strongman competitors and stuff in the arena and the support from that community. So super awesome. Big thank you to Brian Shaw for his efforts, and Carrie Shaw. Was nice to see the love that she got from the community for all of her efforts in organizing not just this East versus West 19, but the Brian Shaw Classic as a whole. So love having them. Big thank you to them for the effort that they put in. I know we're in like a tumultuous time right now, but I think those guys brought a level of professionality and positive energy that I think was needed in the moment. So let's get into the card. So first and foremost, a lot of these matches were booked before East versus West 19 was announced to be partnered up with Brian Shaw Classic. So he had a whole bunch of previous matches booked, and a lot of the early ones were ones he had booked. Seems to be and makes sense that that would have been in conjunction with the strongman community and really catering to that community as well as arm wrestling. So before we even get into the matches, talk about the tournament. Tournament, I think, had payouts and everything. Got to shout out my boy Storm Chelino for winning the 225 right arm first place. Had some good matches, decent class with Tim Talmadge and Auden Larrett. Had some good matches with those guys. So big shout out to Storm Chelino. You guys, he's on his comeback. We'll be seeing a lot more of Storm here shortly. Would love to see him on the East versus West stage. One of my primary training partners, got a lot of love for him. Legend as far as I'm concerned, and very invested in his comeback. So great job, Storm. All right, first match, Derek Smith and Saray Brown. This match went kind of how I thought it would. Saray, coming from the strongman world, training partner of Brian Shaw. Derek Smith, genetic freak, absolutely invested and committed into arm wrestling. I think Saray has been lighting it up, winning matches and stuff. He's built himself a resume. But Derek, when he's focused and peaked, is a problem. He's still one of the best that we have, super heavyweights in this country. Interested to see who he pulls next. I also think Saray Brown, this is a great match that we could probably run back in the future and potentially maybe see a different outcome. Saray just looked like couldn't handle the bone structure and anatomy of Derek. He's tough, long forearm, clean top roll, and Saray just looked like he needed a little bit more experience. Next match on the card, Lawrence Chalet and Martins. Lawrence Chalet was super impressive. Lawrence Chalet, coming from the strongman community, strongman world, he truly looked like an arm wrestler. And I know that was said in the comments and also in the commentary. But to me, the transitions to get pins, the adjustments, and the overall appearance of comfortability on the table, I would like to see Lawrence Chalet pull somebody like of the level of, like, let's say Brandon Allen. I wouldn't mind seeing Lawrence Chalet, Brandon Allen in the future. I think that could be interesting. Still keeps him in the world of strength, but also with a true arm wrestler from the world of strength. I think Lawrence Chalet could be in that top 10 U.S. Super heavyweight discussion. Any one of those guys in that level. I'd like to see any match. I think the guy has a great personality. I'd like to see him pull again, regardless of the opponent. Next match was Gabby Vasconcelos and Jocelyn Persone. This one, Jocelyn has looked amazing against Sarah Bachman. Her last outing against Egla, she seemed to get flustered a little bit with the refereeing and uncomfortability being Turkey, the travel, all those things seemed to weigh on her. She seemed to be kind of knocked out of her focus. And now she's facing Gabby Vasconcelos. So this is a match, Gabby is considered the GOAT of female arm wrestling, and for very good reason. This is a match that was discussed prior with, Jocelyn getting a win over Sarah. Me personally, after the Egla match, I had kind of pondered what Jocelyn's trajectory should look like, and I believe this is a match that should have potentially happened a year or 2 years from now. And it went the way that I kind of expected it to go, which was Gabby being in control for a 3-0 win. However, Jocelyn, I believe, to be the future of women's arm wrestling, especially in North America. And again, if I could have made this match, I'd have done it a year or 2 years from now and given her some more experience along the way. So, message out to Jocelyn, keep the faith, keep grinding. Let's get some more experience and run this back in a couple years. But Gabby, overall, got to mention, she looked great physically. She looked peaked. She looked big. She looked strong. She looked in control. And it looks like she is poised to make a run at another shot against Barbora. Hopefully, I would hope in the next year or so. So maybe an Egla match or somebody else, and then we get to see maybe her and Barbora again. Would love to see. I know will be the third time now, but I got to root for Gabby. All right, next matchup, Rickard Borman and Pablo Dervinv. So, love both of these guys. Rickard is one of those kind of enigmas. He's coming out of Australia via South Africa, and it looks like he's killing everybody over there, but it's always so hard to figure out the level. However, he had a great match against Wallace Dilly. I personally know how good Wallace Dilly is. Great top roll, great hand, very, very tough in the hook. Wallace Dilly, to me, incredibly underrated arm wrestler. Rickard's win over Wallace meant a lot to me in establishing his level. And now with the match with Pablo, it kind of reaffirmed that. So first round went to Pablo. He had the good side of the strap, top roll, wrist went back a little bit, went side pressure, got the pin, looked quick. Rickard looked super diligent in the setup, was negotiating with the refs, making sure he wasn't in a bad position. Second round on the good side of the strap, defensive top roll by Rickard, got the stop, Pablo drive, and something let go. So Rickard won by, I don't know, what do you call it? Disqualification? I don't know. Won by injury, however you say it. But it looked like he was in a good position. Pablo's wrist was compromised. Nobody wants to win that way. And Rickard was very humble in discussing it after the match. Great kid, man. Great kid. Quit his job. Full-time arm wrestler now. Sky's the limit for this guy. I'm not sure who we put him up against next. I think he's getting bigger too. So I think he's going into that true super heavyweight world. But yeah, super impressive. Next match, maybe a potential opponent for Rickard, either of them. Matt Mask and Philip Larson. So this one, I expected to be a little bit more evenly matched, but man, Philip Larson is a monster. Matt's fast, experienced, good hand, huge hand. And Philip looked like totally comfortable and unfazed by any of it. Just absolute control. Again, I think Philip Larson, next step, maybe Rickard Borman. And I think Rickard definitely has tools in his tool bag that can create problems for Philip that he wasn't posed with against Matt, being a pure top roller. Matt did try and flop wrist press, but that's not his shtick. So, of course, not as much success there. I think that was the last ditch effort in the third round. But yeah, Philip Larson, super impressive. Can't wait to see who he gets matched up with next. Next match, Devin Lara, Alex Cordeta. We're going to cover both of these right now. This was the left arm match, the one that really, to me, was the main event of the card. But they wanted to get that out of the way early. Obviously, Alex had to fill in for what was supposed to be Vitali, right arm. Big shout out to Alex for coming to Colorado and dealing with Devin, especially how angry he is with the current situation and wanting to pull Vitali. I'll tell you though, Devin looks to be hitting another gear. I would have loved to see him pull Vitali on the day, because I think the energy that came along with Devin, plus the added weight and the focus and everything else, like he was in the driver's seat. Left arm, for sure in the driver's seat. Right arm, not even close. So, it was a master class by Devin, in my opinion. I mean, the just say go stuff, like in weird positions, he's letting rope out. Totally in control. Devin looks to be primed for, I guess, if we see Vitali in Switzerland. But if not, hopefully, I mean, what I want to see, and everybody wants to see, is another match with Laban. It's hard to justify it without climbing those rungs, but would love to see it sooner than later. Next match, Eddie Hall, Robert Oburst. This was a good one. I thought it was very entertaining, very dialed in for this one. Robert won the first round, and later on in the second, third, I believe it was second, third, but he did sustain an injury, and it was stopped early. I think it was 2-1 on the stoppage, but Robert looked very strong. And Eddie obviously was entertaining and vocal in the setups, which made it fun to watch. But Robert looked to be a very good and strong arm wrestler, but still a little bit amateurish in wanting to hold on to Eddie outside the strap. Eddie was literally setting up with no finger pressure at all, just knifing his pronator and his thumb pad into Robert's fingers and just hitting back and outside, and Robert was just hanging on to get pinned. It gave me a headache, because I think that one it potentially could have went the other way if we would have saw a little bit more savvy, maybe some strap work. But awesome in any case. Love to see Eddie Hall win. He's amazing for the sport, and I would love to see him continue to progress on. He definitely has that weirdo like table IQ to like distract people and offset focus, and I think he really had to use it in this match, because Robert seemed to be the stronger man on the day, but he immobilized that. So shout out to Eddie Hall, super awesome. Next match was the one that I cared the most about, which was Todd Hutchings and Dave Chafee, and I did not expect this one to go the way it did. This was a one-sided Dave Chafee show. 3-0. Todd did, I think, in the second round, get a slowdown in the strap there for a second. Chafee top rolled, got control of his hand. Todd still got a little bit of a bite and a little bit of a stop, but he was still outside of his shoulder. And Dave just looked, I mean, number one, let's talk about the weight cut. This guy come down to 115, 253 or whatever it is, and he did it without water cutting. He just lost the weight. This guy has abs right now. And it's one of those scenarios where I believe Dave, competing at 270, 275 in the supers, he can get down to a 253 just by cleaning his excess garbage out of his diet, and he can lose essentially no strength, which is a scary thing. So we talk about like potential next matches for Chafee. I think he might be slated for Ibrahim Sagov. I'm not 100% sure. I think that was mentioned, but if not, I'd love to see him against Ibrahim. I'd love to see him against Daddy Khan. I'd love to see him against Reno Masic. there's a whole handful of people out there that I want to see Dave Chafee pull. I know he's pulled everyone into super heavyweights, but it's cool and kind of like reinvigorating that he's going down in weight. I love the idea of that, because Dave is one of those guys that I've always said, like, man, he's got such a great bone structure and everything like that, but these guys that are in the supers now, stature-wise, are just way bigger. So let's see what Dave has in the 115 class. I can't wait. Next match, which really was the main event to me, other than Devin going early in the event, was Brian Shaw and Brandon Allen. And I don't think it disappointed, because Brandon Allen gets the stop in the strap, first round, and I'm thinking Brandon Allen is going to win, and thinking that there is no way that Brian can adjust. And lo and behold, we see Brian clamp onto the thumb and control that open top roll and deny the slip, almost RVJ style, multiple times. And you could see the frustration on Brandon Allen's face. But man, to me, it was like, especially in rounds like 2 and 3, this thing was a nail biter. I think it's super awesome for Brian, because I think he's had a tough match against Eddie. Now he had a tough match against Brandon, which is a step up. And he's dealt with the King's move. I think the experience level jump for Brian is high. Like, boom, like he might have gained a couple matches worth of experience out of that one. Not to mention, he had to organize that whole dang event and then compete in it, which is impossible. And it's very hard to bring your best when you have all that stress from outside things. You're trying to run the show. You're worried about how everything's going. Then you got to go pull. So the odds were stacked against Brian, and he showed up, man. And Brandon Allen looked great too. Brandon Allen is a huge dude. It's so weird to see him at the table looking small next to Brian. But yeah, I mean, to me, this whole event and that match kind of like encapsulated it. Brian, stepped in the 11th hour to kind of, partner up and help East versus West move forward. And in my opinion, like this kind of followed suit, that he would have a really good match and have success. Again, I said big shout out to them guys. Big shout out to his wife, Carrie, because obviously she had a huge part in the organization. Big shout out to Robert and Dexter for keeping this thing going through all the choppy waters that we've had. But I'll tell you, as far as production goes and doing this event on a short notice, I think it was a huge success. And I think the card was entertaining. There's so many people out there that'll criticize 3-0 matches. If you arm wrestle and you arm wrestle at this level, you know that there's a lot of 3-0s out there, but a lot of 3-0s that are really, really close. I'm not saying this card was necessarily that, but I think the card was entertaining. And we absolutely got more than we paid for. So I'm very excited to see future endeavors with the crossover between Strongman, with Eddie and Brian and Lawrence and all these other guys that we should be welcoming open-armed into our community. Can't wait to see where arm wrestling goes. I know like I said, we've had some muddy waters, some choppy waters recently, but looking to hopefully build some momentum off of this event and get some momentum behind East versus West as a whole again, and move everything in the right direction. So again, thought the event was awesome, thought the production was awesome, and I'm looking forward to the next one. I believe the next one's going to be Switzerland. We'll see how that goes. That's tail end of football season for me, but I would absolutely love to be at that event and hopefully augment or add some positive vibes to the future arm wrestling as a whole. But big shout out to Brian again, big shout out to Robert and Dexter, East versus West as a whole, and all of the arm wrestling community. I salute you and looking forward to the next event. Thanks again for tuning in.